As we ask in Jesus' name. We're in Joshua chapter 1, and I'll be reading out of the New American Standard Version of the Bible, and it reads as such. This book of the law shall not depart from your mouth, but you shall meditate on it day and night, so that you may be careful to do according to all that is written in it. For then you will make your way prosperous, and then you will achieve success. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be terrified or dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be terrified nor dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. Today I want to teach from a subject titled From Good to Great. From good to great. You may take your seat. Be strong and courageous. Do not be terrified or dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. If you believe it and receive it, I dare you to say, I'm going from good to great. Jim Collins writes in his book, Good to Great, while some companies make the leap and others don't. He said, good is the enemy of great. And that is one of the key reasons why we have so little that becomes great. We don't have great schools, principally because we have good schools. We don't have great government, principally because we have good government. Few people obtain great lives in large part because it's just as easy to settle for a good one. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to pause or end our series on the money, and I want us to have a straightforward conversation today. And I want to declare over this entire year, if you receive it, that in 2022, if you're willing to put in the work, that this is the year that God has assigned for you and everything connected to you to go from good to great. To go from good to great. My oldest son, Christian, he has always been smart, and he was always an A student, but I always felt like he could do better. Mason gets to the grade where he's no longer getting S's. He starts getting number grades, and Mason comes home and he got a 97 in English and a 99 in math. And I'm like, what? He just busted him on top of the head. Little did I know, they apparently started a competition. Who can get the highest grades? And what I discovered is that what I saw in Christian was always on him when he didn't see it himself. His problem was he was comfortable being good, but God had stamped on him to be great. And he came home with a progress report the other day. He said, Daddy, you want to look at mine? I said, do I need to? He said, you probably want to. I looked at it. Christian has a 99 in math, and he's got a 98 in something, and he's like, yeah, this 97, that's my lowest grade. I'm going to get that up. All of a sudden, somebody who was used to doing okay is now doing great because they needed a push. And I'm asking God to send a fresh wind down your road, because there are too many of you who have gotten comfortable being stuck on stupid because everything around you has said it's okay for us to be good. But I want you to yell behind your mask all the way down your road, this is a great road. Find your children near you and say, you are great children, and this is your season to maximize your full productivity. Everything around me is going from good to great. Everything around me is going from good to great. Good to great, ladies and gentlemen, is not an easy journey. Because the reality is you can't cost cut your way to greatness. It's going to require discipline. You're going to have to do some things you don't want to do. You're going to have to tell your friends you can't go places that they're going because you're going to accomplish something that they're not accomplishing because you have been introduced to an appetite that they have not yet met. Be careful when you sign up on this journey from good to great because the price of greatness is responsibility. You can't keep blaming others when you make a commitment to become great. You got to take responsibility for yourself. Why am I not maximizing my full potential? Because I'm lazy. I know I'm lazy. My mama knows I'm lazy. Everybody around me knows that I'm lazy. But this is the season that I'm retiring my laziness and I'm taking responsibility for my future. Ladies and gentlemen, success, Dwayne Johnson says, isn't always about greatness. Success is about consistency. For consistent hard work leads to success, and with that success, greatness comes. And here's the one that I really, really need you to tackle. Great spirits have always encountered violent opposition. But when you're on your journey to greatness and you're finding yourself experiencing violent opposition, know that it only comes from mediocre minds. Only mediocre minds are in opposition of people who want to do something great because they can't understand, because they've had this sense and this feeling, but they never jumped on it. And when you make a decision to change, when everything around you is comfortable, you make a decision to change. When everybody is smooth sailing and you make a decision to ruffle the waters, there's going to be violent opposition. But always know, on your journey to greatness, violent opposition only comes from mediocre minds. Today, if it's okay with you, on our journey to greatness, being strong and courageous, this is what God tells the children of Israel through Joshua. I need you to be strong and courageous. Now, consider this. They're on their way to a land that God had promised. We're going to the land of promise that flows with milk and honey. I have promised the land. So why does God promise the land but then tell them to be strong and courageous? Because just because you're walking into promise doesn't mean you won't be introduced to opposition. Your opposition does not disqualify your promise. Your inability to fight for what God has placed over you and on you disqualifies you from your promise. So watch this. As we look today, we're going to look through the book of Joshua and use Joshua as a character witness. This book of Joshua is known in many cases as the book of conquest, the book of overcoming. In Joshua, generally, chapter 1, we see the preamble of leadership. In chapter 2, we see the preparation of the people. In chapter 3 and 4, we see the passage of the Jordan. In chapter 5, we see these precepts. In chapter 6, we see the power and the prayer and the praise of Jericho. All of us know about the walls of Jericho. If you in any way matriculated through Sunday School 101, you were taught about the walls of Jericho, but have you ever been taught about the preparation that qualified them for the miracle relative to the walls of Jericho? Watch this. Let's talk about it for a second. In chapter 1, this preamble of leadership, the children of Israel are all wailing. Their wonderful, masterful leader, one of the greatest leaders of all time, by the name of Moses, has died. It is now time for them to bury him. And we get to the book of Joshua, chapter 1, and God says to Joshua, Joshua, Moses is dead. Get up, you're next. That's the shortest eulogy you've ever heard in your life. Your past is dead, but the future awaits. I'm calling you to lead. Get up. How many of you have negated the opportunity to walk into your next because you're crying over what was? God is telling somebody this is your season to get up. The promise is still sure, and I'm using you to lead others, but you got to get up. Tell somebody to get up. In chapter 2, we see the preparation of the people or the spying of Jericho. 2 spies go in, and then they get into a little trouble. Rahab the harlot hides them. She gets a little hookup there from being faithful to the men of God. In chapter 3 and 4, we see the passage of Jordan. We're going to talk about that in just a second. In chapter 6, we see the prayer, the power and the praise that comes from this miracle of Jericho. But something unique happens in chapter 5. Chapter 5 doesn't get a lot of play, but chapter 5 is the most critical chapter, and chapter 5 is the chapter that's going to catapult us to that next level. If you'll be willing to carry, to receive, and to walk out the concepts and the precepts that we're going to unpack today. Are you ready? Chapter 5, verse 2. At that time, the Lord said to Joshua, make yourself flint knives and circumcise again the sons of Israel the second time. All right. Y'all better get ready. It's going to get nasty today. He says, Joshua chapter 5, verse 2. At that time, the Lord said to Joshua, make for yourself flint knives and circumcise again the sons of Israel the second time. There are 3 things we're going to focus on today. Number 1, we're going to focus on your proclivities. Number 2, we're going to focus on your psychological patterns. Number 3, we're going to focus on your passions. In verse 2, he begins to deal with proclivities, their nature. He begins to deal with their flesh. He says in verse 2, at that time, the Lord said to Joshua, make for yourself flint knives and circumcise again the sons of Israel the second time. All right. So with the children of Israel, this is kind of a bit of a long narrative. It goes throughout the entirety of the Old Testament. So just to jump in Joshua and think you know what's going down, it's really not enough. You got to have a little backstory so you can make good of the context. So this is what we're finding. In Egypt, when God freed the children of Israel, he took them into the wilderness. He's getting ready to take them into the land of promise, but there was disobedience in the camp. He didn't like the attitudes, the murmuring, and the mindsets of many other people. So he said, each and every one of you that have murmured against me and my promise, you're going to die here in the wilderness. I'm going to establish a new people, basically your children, and they're going to be the ones who see the land of promise. So while they're in the wilderness, their parents are getting old and dying while their children are maturing. I need you to understand. The children of Israel, the parents, the fathers in the wilderness, they had already been circumcised. But they all died out in the wilderness. So as Joshua continues their journey, all those, the sons who have now become men and soldiers, they weren't circumcised in the wilderness. So God is saying, now I need you to do for the sons what we did for their fathers. Watch this. The sons grew up. They were born in the wilderness, hadn't been circumcised. Here's the problem. Typically, circumcision took place on the 8th day of the first month. Typically, circumcision took place on the 8th day of the first month. Why is this important? Because Joshua is performing a task on adults that should have happened on children. I give it to you again. Joshua is performing a task on adults that should have taken place on children. Why is that important? Because the church of Jesus Christ will always be sidetracked in the days when grown people are still dealing with adolescent issues. When we're growing up as adults still carrying our childhood baggage, we're always going to slow down the progress of the body of Christ. God is calling for some of the older people to deal with some of the things, sadly, that were skipped over you so you don't end up being an adult having to deal with childhood issues. I'm going to take it a little bit further. He says, Joshua, I want you to prepare to circumcise the sons. They're the sons, but they're the fathers now. They're grown up now. He says, I need you to circumcise them. Circumcision in that day was the removal of foreskin. I hope my brothers are comfortable. Y'all good, bro? You good, bro? It is the removal of foreskin. It is the removal of excess skin. It is the removal of flesh. And because the Israelites had seen so many people die out, they went from being a mighty nation to a mini nation. Few people really talk about this. While they were in the wilderness, they saw so many people die. They went from being a nation of millions to being a nation of few, or a mini nation. But God is still going to reestablish them. How does God reestablish them from mighty to many, from many back to mighty? It comes from reproduction. I'm slow walking, hang in here with me. It comes from reproduction. But here's the problem. It's hard for the men to reproduce with all the flesh in the way. He said, listen, I have promised you your family, and the promise is still good. You have gone from being mighty to many, and I'm now about to reestablish you by the production of more children. But every time I put you together, reproduction is halted because you got too much flesh in the way. Is it possible one of the reasons many of our churches aren't growing because there's too much flesh in the way? One of the reasons we can't see the continuing birthing in the body of Christ is because too much flesh is in the way. We can't even halfway pay attention to the word, looking at all the flesh that ends up on the stage. And it's not just the singers, it's not just the musicians. In many cases, it's even worse in some of our preachers. At what point are we going to call ourselves back to the standard of God and say, this is excess flesh. It's getting in the way. It has to be cut off. Was that too strong? I give you another one. Not only was circumcision critical to remove excess flesh, but circumcision was also critical because in the excess flesh, there was a likelihood of the hovering of infection. Infection not only lived in the excess skin, but it grew in the excess skin. It means that something that should have been killed was actually being multiplied in the dark areas that were not being confronted. Here's something we got to consider. Because circumcision is a private issue. You can't look down your row right now and tell, nah, he ain't here. You can't. Circumcision is a private issue. But watch this. Circumcision was so important. The flesh management in the people was so important that God took a private issue and made it public. Because you keep hiding, and the more you hide your flesh, the more it becomes infected. And it's one thing when it infects you. But what happens when everybody you connect with all of a sudden get sick with what you've been hiding? So your private cough becomes their public scratch because you passed an infection that you did not inform them of. In many cases, we thought the issue was sexually transmitted diseases. But from a spiritual perspective, we got to consider spiritually transmitted demons. Because if you don't know who you're hooking up with and the infections that are in their mouth, every time saliva comes out, it's falling on you. And you're wondering why you always feel like you're sick. Because you're hanging around positively infected people. And they don't love you enough to tell you. So how do we rid this? We need everybody to manage your flesh. That, ladies and gentlemen, is what On the Money was all about. It was about you telling your flesh you're not going to have it. You telling your flesh you're not going to do it. There might not be anything wrong with it, but I'm in charge of you. You're not in charge of me. This is about flesh management. Are you still with me? Watch this. Because of this excess skin, the excess skin was the most sensitive part. The excess skin was the most sensitive part. The excess skin was the most sensitive part, meaning those who had the greatest response generally went public and communicating that they're still dealing with flesh issues. Because when you're so sensitive about everything, it communicates you haven't crucified your flesh. Every time you got a problem, it's too cold, it's too hot. Why I'm sitting all the way back here? No, I'm too close. It's too loud, it's too low. Every time you got an issue with something, it means you have a sensitivity problem and there's some flesh that needs to be cut away. We doing all right? Here's the reality, ladies and gentlemen. Chapter 5, watch this. Joshua took flint stones. He basically went round the way, found some rocks that he thought were sharp enough. To get the work done. These stones were often used repetitively. This is beautiful. These stones were often used repetitively for the removal of the foreskin. As a result, the stones were no longer like clay or gray. They oftentimes turned a reddish color. All right, you're so smart over there. Keep your mouth closed, though. I ain't ready, though. I'm not ready. Watch this. The stones, they went from a grayish, clayish color now to a reddish color. It was a symbolism that these stones have already been marked by the blood. Now that's beautiful, because for the children of Israel, the only reason we're still here talking about this story is because they were marked by the blood. You got to position yourself even in 2022. I know this sounds so old school, but you got to ensure that you have been marked by the blood. Watch this. He says in verse 8, chapter 5, verse 8, now when they had finished circumcising all the nation, they remained in the places in the camp until they recovered. This is important. He says, because you cannot be cut and go right to work. When your flesh has been cut, you have been hurt. So you have to take a moment to pause and to heal. One of the reasons we have so many issues in the body of Christ is because we are having people putting hands on other people who have not dealt first with their cuts. How is your flesh open, but you praying over mine? You need to sit and heal lest you bleed on me. No. He says, because their flesh was open, you need to remain where you are and take a season to heal. Now, let's have a public conversation right here. There are going to be some of you who are going to have some issues. We've had people who didn't understand. We've had people who have walked away. I want to make this public decree. There are going to be some of you, you're going to go through some things in life. And when life hits you, your ministry lead, your senior ministry lead, myself, it don't matter who it comes from. It's all still coming from me. I don't care who say it. It's still all coming from me. But they're probably going to come to you and say, we want you to sit for 30 days and just come and worship and receive. Listen, then my husband left me. He divorced me. I'm so broken. You know what? That little trifling joker, I knew he won't know. I'm sorry. I got in my flesh right there, right? I knew he won't no good for nothing. But do me this favor, though. I need you to just come and worship and sit for 90 days. I just want you to receive the word to grow for 90 days, because where you come from, you hear penalty. But for where we're going, I need you to hear healing. No. What he's communicating to me is he knows that I've been cut and my flesh is open so that I don't bleed on other people. I need to sit where I am and heal. You're not being penalized. You're being pushed to healing. But oftentimes healing doesn't take place because instead of healing, we want to get busy. I gotta go. Now we know everything you've touched because you marked it all with your blood. And there ain't no healing in your blood. Watch this. And he remained in the places in their camp until they recovered. Number one, we got to deal with our proclivities, our nature, our flesh. And number two, we got to deal with psychological patterns. We got to deal with the way we think. Somebody say the way we think. Psychological patterns or the way we think. Are you enjoying yourselves? Why is this important? Again, the children of Israel, we're now seeing their narrative through the lens of Joshua, in the book of Joshua. But they have began in the book of Exodus. So you got to know all of this story to really have that backdrop. Why is this important? Because in Joshua chapter 3, they're about to find themselves in the midst of a miracle. They're about to find themselves in a water miracle. In Joshua chapter 3, they're going to find themselves crossing over the Jordan, and God works a miracle on their behalf. It reminds them, I'm sure, of Exodus chapter 14, where the children of Israel with Moses were facing the Red Sea, and God worked a water miracle. But I want to communicate to you, in many cases, God is dealing with your psychological patterns when he challenges your thinking by telling you he's going to perform a familiar blessing, but a different way. He's increasing and calling on your capacity to believe in him, to tell you, I'm going to do something you're familiar with. Yes, this is going to be comfortable. I didn't finish, but I'm going to do it differently. I mean, have you ever like gone to work and by the time you get there, you're just like, Lord, I don't even know how I made it. I do this so often, I don't remember looking at no lights. I don't really remember looking at no traffic. It was nobody but you, God. It's something about pattern that makes us comfortable. But you can get to the same place, but have to go a different way. And it causes your senses to awaken because you're not as comfortable as you used to be. And God is saying in some cases, you're going to find yourself experiencing familiar blessings. But I'm increasing your capacity to believe in me by doing a familiar thing a different way. Because they're used to Moses stretching his hand and the waters parting. Exodus chapter 14. But in Joshua chapter 3, you're not going to stretch your hand, Joshua, and the waters part. I need to increase your capacity to believe. So what I did with Moses is told Moses to move, then I'll move. But in Joshua chapter 3, he says, I need you to move, then I'll move. He says, I'm increasing your capacity to believe in me. Watch this. He tells Moses, stretch forth your hand and the waters part. But in Joshua chapter 3, he tells them, in order for you to cross the Jordan, I need you to get your feet wet. He says, before I move anything, I need you to trust me enough to put your feet in the water and trust that I can move it. And in 2022, you saw God allow you to walk across on dry land. But in this new season, your feet are going to have to get wet before they ever become dry. God, I got to show you that I can trust you. And in order, thank you, Father. In order to show him that you can trust him, sometimes you have to move in the face of obstacles. All right, let me put the cookies on the bottom shelf so everybody can eat. Here we go. You're entering into a season of new doors. All right, Pastor T, what are you trying to say? What I'm trying to tell you is about 2022, probably about 30 years ago. The world was impacted by the implementation of new doors. All right, this is what happened, right? So every time we go to a restaurant, there's a handle on the door, and it either says push or pull. Every door you go to, it says push or pull. Every door you go to, it says push or pull. When I get to the door, I don't know what to do. I'm looking on the door for a sign. It's going to say push or pull. All right? I remember one day when I was a kid, we went to Farm Fresh. Y'all don't remember Farm Fresh, all right? That's for you old fools. We went to Farm Fresh right there on Spitz where Walmart, that's that new age stuff. You had to get down with Farm Fresh. We used to go in there and play WWE on the arcade. Anybody remember that? Yeah, so we're in Farm Fresh, and we thought we were balling. Farm Fresh then was like Harris Teeter's. It was like all the bougie people went to Farm Fresh. So we think we in there something. And I remember the first time we went to Farm Fresh, and I didn't know how to get in, because there was an implementation of new doors. Because every door I'm used to going to has a handle. And it says in order to go in, you got to push or pull. But Farm Fresh implemented new doors that don't require pushing or pulling. Farm Fresh's doors only required that you take a step. And if you take a step, then doors will begin to open up on your behalf. And I'm telling somebody in this season, you don't have to push, you don't have to pull, you don't have to beg. I just dare you to take a step. Doors are going to begin to open on your behalf. Take a step. Take a step. Tell somebody around you this is your season to take a step. In Joshua chapter 5, verse 9, then the Lord said to Joshua, today I have rolled away the shame of Egypt from you. Man, we're just looking at a couple verses, and I'm telling you, this is crazy. He says, we're dealing with psychological patterns. Watch this. He says, today I have rolled away the shame of you from Egypt. So the name of that place is called Gilgal to this day. Gilgal meaning the place of rolling. Speaking of the Jordan, where the Red Sea, Moses stretched his hand and the waters parted. But at the Jordan River, they put their foot in and the waters began to roll back. Gilgal was the place of rolling. The generation of Egypt, the children of Israel, the Israelites, the generation who was once held captive in Egypt, they died in the wilderness. Are you still with me? Yeah. The generation of the children of Israel that was held captive in Egypt died out in the wilderness. Now there's a new generation of their sons and daughters preparing to go into the land of promise. But this is what Joshua says. He says, today I have rolled away the shame of Egypt from you. Today, I have rolled away the shame of Egypt from you. Why is this problematic? It's problematic because Joshua is suggesting that the mature generation of the children of Israel is now experiencing shame from something they never experienced. They were either unborn or children when their parents were disobedient in the wilderness. Their parents died out. There's now a new generation of the children of Israel going into the land of promise. They have not experienced this disobedience. They did not experience the errant ways of their parents, but they're walking in shame. Why are you walking in shame from something you didn't experience? Is it possible that they are living carrying the shame of their dead parents? We're talking generational dents. Those messages that our elders speak over us, that oftentimes when we find ourselves in conflict, we'd rather quit instead of try because we have already been defeated in our minds by the stories we have been told. You know we don't do that. You know, that's too much. Oh, you different now. You one of them now. What's wrong? What's wrong with being one of them? I need you to define what you mean by one of them. Are you talking people who want money? Count me in as one of them. Are you talking about people who want to leave legacy for their children? Yeah, count me in as one of them. I need you to define what you mean by one of them. At some point, ladies and gentlemen, we have to divorce from the mental discrepancies that have been placed over us by the generation ahead. Can I tell you something? Oh, Jesus, I hope I don't make nobody mad, but if I'm going to do it, I might as well get into some good trouble. Have you ever Have you ever had a dislike for something, not because it was wrong, but because it was wrong for you? I give it to you again. Have you ever had a dislike for something, not because it was all outright wrong, but at least in a season it was wrong for you? All right? Because every elder statesman who speaks down on the next generation isn't always speaking on what's wrong. Sometimes they're speaking on what was wrong for them. Yeah. You need to get yourself together. You shouldn't be out here looking like that. Why you out here showing up? You don't need to be showing all that. No, don't do that. Don't do that. Because if you had snatched like she had snatched, you would have shown a little bit more than you did. Now let's keep it straight 100 now. Because if we can back this thing up 40 years and you had it like that, you wouldn't be saved today, mother. Let's not even trip. So can we start first with saying, girl, you're bad. You're bad. I don't know what they injected in your thighs, but them things is bad. Now let's talk about covering them up just a little. They're bad now. It's bad. I don't know. You my Wonder Woman. You my She-Ra. Girl, I'm proud of you. We weren't doing stuff like that. You bad. Let's talk about a balance here. Talk about a balance. Because we even look at this generation of young men who choose to wear their hair a little bit longer. Oh yeah, you better be careful with him. You better watch him. I see it on him. No, old head. Tell me, what do you see? Now let's be honest. Put it on out there. Tell me what you see. Yeah. You better get him around some girls and get him some of that stuff, because I see that thing. No, tell me what you saying. No, because with that long hair, he looking kind of soft. No. You're not hating because he looking soft. You hating because you tried to grow yours, but the bald spot wouldn't let you. Yeah, your ponytail didn't exactly look full with that bald spot right there. So can we just start for real, though? I like what you're doing, young man. I couldn't do that in my generation. But watch this. Oh, God, this is so good. Woo! Because watch this. I want you to get ready to go on a flight. You go to the airport, all right? You going through all the baggage claim. They're in TSA pre-check looking at you like, really? You one of them? You going to slow us down? All right? They're in that TSA pre-check, all right? They're going through their tickets, all right? And they give their ID and they give their itinerary. They get ticketed in. Everything's good, all right? You get up front and you have a ticket. You've paid the same amount of money to sit in the seat directly beside them. You have a destination. You know where you're going. It's already been purchased, bought, and approved. But the reason they're not going to let you on that flight is not because you don't have a ticket, and it's not because you don't have a destination. They're not going to let you on. It's because you don't have an ID. Because your ID affirms your identity. And in many cases, we have a generation of people who speak down on everything because you don't have an ID. And that's the problem why you can't fly. But don't hate on me. This is my season to take off. I have a ticket. I have a destination. And I know who I am. He says, number one, let me deal with your proclivities, your flesh, your natural desires. Number two, let me deal with your psychological patterns, the way you think. I'm trying to take you to another level, but your mind is disqualifying you. Watch this. But then number three, he says, we got to deal with your passions. With your proclivities, your nature, let's circumcise that. With your psychological patterns, I'm going to do familiar things in different ways to make you see me as the big God that I am. But then number three, he says, I want to deal with your passions. Here we go. In verse 11, he says, then on the day after the Passover, on that very day, they ate some of the produce of the land, unleavened cakes, roasted grain. And the manna ceased on the day after they had eaten some of the produce of the land, so that the sons of Israel no longer had manna, but they ate some of the yield of the land of Canaan during the year. This is important. Why is this important? Because manna, ladies and gentlemen, is translated, what is this? So while they were in the wilderness, God fed them freely with no work every day. Manna, manna, manna. Now this is important. So what are you eating? What is this? That's the translation of manna. That's what manna means. Manna means, what is this? So when people ask, what are you eating? They would respond, I'm eating, what is this? Watch this. This is why this is important. Watch this. Because for 40 years, God gave them comfort even amongst their questions. And that's for somebody today. Because I got a lot of questions. But it's okay to have questions as long as you have comfort. And God is sending somebody comfort even in the season of a bunch of questions. But this is important. God is saying, I'm getting ready to take you from what was to what is. But before I take you to what is, I have to break you from the appetite of what was. For 40 years, I fed you freely and you never had to work. But now you're going to eat a little bit better, but you're going to have to work for it. Oh, this is good. Now, so what he does is he says, now that you're in the land, the first time of you ate of the fresh produce, he says, I dried up from on the inside of you the appetite of what you have been fed for the last 40 years. Why is this important? Because in many cases, one of the biggest conflicts you're going to have is going into new places, wanting to go back to what was comfortable. So God is saying, to rid you from wanting to go back, I'm going to cut off your taste from what you're familiar with. All right? So for 40 years, the wilderness is what I knew. I step into this place on the first day and eat of fresh produce. And the moment I eat of it, God dries up the manna, doesn't send anymore. Watch this. There is a duality in their appetite, which often hinges us in between. You're stuck between almost and not yet. So what God does is he shuts the door without your permission. How does he shut the door? He says, I'm going to let you taste of something new one time. And this new thing is going to be so good, you won't even remember what you had. God is robbing them of old appetites. And for some of you, it's almost like you're stuck in between carnality and kingdom. You have a heart for God, but your appetites keep pulling you back. And God is saying, you're about to enter into the season where I'm going to let you eat on the freshness of the land. And once you have one taste, somebody say one taste. My boys, they were really, really good during this fast. And they really improved their math skills. So every time we went by Bojangles, Dad, we got 18 more days. Dad, we got 9 more days. Dad, we got 4 more days. Dad, he got 2 more days. They have been counting down to this service here like never before. So when the conversation comes up last night, I called them down. Boys, you're probably going to want to see this. And they come downstairs and they're looking on the screen. They're reading the screen. And they're like, so what does this mean? So does this mean what I think it means? I say, yes, boys, it means what you think it means. You have done well. Put your clothes on. To Bojangles we go. Right now. This was last night, about 8 o'clock. Listen, it is cold out there. Cold. I lit up the garage and almost changed my mind. Heck to the no, ain't doing this. What's this? I said, yeah, boys, it's time. Let's go to Bojangles. You've been praying. God has answered. We're on our way to Bojangles. And we get there, and I don't know how y'all do it. When I'm paying, I'm not asking nobody what they want. I ain't got time. I got to turn down my music and have these conversations to talk with uncertainty, walking uncertainty. Yeah, give me a Happy Meal. No. Give me that nugget. Nah. I think I'm going to do it, but nah. Ain't got time for none of that. Who paying? All right? Because I'm paying, you're going to eat what I want. This is so funny. It's so funny. I let down the window, and I can hear them in the back. Shh, 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 shh. They want to know what they're getting, all right? Because I'm a good father, I already know what they want before they ask. So this is what I said. I said, excuse me, I need a 2-piece kids meal tender with fries and sweet tea. What type of sauce? No sauce. We don't do sauce in my car. No sauce in my car. Until you can clean it out, nobody gets sauce in my car. All right? I got a 2-piece kids meal tender with fries, sweet tea. That covers my youngest. My 2 oldest are still like, so is we going to split that? Is we going to break it and bless it? How's this going to go down? I said, I'm not finished. I'm stunting, right? I done saved some money over this fast. We living life. I says, now give me 2 3-piece tenders with fries and sweet tea. What type of sauce? No sauce in this car. And I hear him in the back, yeah, boy, it's about to go down. Watch this. So the boxes come in, I'm passing the boxes back. They already know where they go to. You can tell by the size of the box. The little box goes to the little guy. Big boxes go to the bigger guys, all right? So they're on their way home. This is the quietest ride we have had. You hear me? Since my wife and I were single. This is the quietest ride that we had. I get home, and I'm like, so how was it? And Christian says, it was good, but it wasn't what I was expecting. So what do you mean it wasn't what you were expecting? Because I've been counting down for the last 21 days, looking forward to this moment. But what he didn't realize is that over the course of 21 days, he wasn't just saving money. God was changing his appetite. And for somebody in this room, you're going to get some phone calls this week. Who this? Oh, this you? Oh, no, I don't need to fool with you no more. I don't need to fool with you no more. I don't need to rock with you. Why? Because God has changed my appetite. He changed my appetite. Oh, can I take the story a little further since it works? You done had 2 weeks off. You're getting work today. And I'm not apologizing for it. I'm going to be finished when I'm finished. So sit down. You're not rushing me. All right? So I hadn't eaten dinner because I'm working. I'm preparing the word. I wasn't fasting. I know that's what old schools do. I eat on Saturday. And when I get ready, I take my wife out. We have a good time. I don't got to stay up all night on Saturday night waiting for a word. I got 7 days a week to do that. All right? I don't wait till the last minute. No offense to nobody else. So, I hadn't eaten, but I got to do this for my boys. All right? So I'm making a decision. Am I going to, eat my meal like I've done the last 21 days when I get back home? I can cook something really fast. I learned some new habits, y'all. I'm kind of stunting in the kitchen now. You hear me? I learned some new habits. And I said, the fast is over. Maybe I can splurge and treat myself. And I got to Bojangles, and I said, I think I'm going to treat myself. I would love some salted fries and a big glass of sweet tea. But I don't need it. I really don't need it. Summer's coming. I'm trying to get right. So what I did say, what I did say is, what I will do is, if any of them have anything left over, I'll just nibble. I'll nibble on the leftovers. I'll nibble on the leftovers. Watch this. And I'm looking back. Any fries back there? Nah, play it. Ain't no fries back here. So my Langston, he might be my favorite. He might be my favorite. Langston says, Dad, I think I'm going to have some fries. You're welcome to mine. Do you want them? I said, man, just keep them in the box. Hold them till we get to the house. You my guy. You about to get some V-Bucks. We get to the house. All right, before you get out of the car, here's your orders. When you get in the house, I need everybody to take the shower, get your clothes out for church tomorrow. You got a little bit of time. And all they're thinking is shower, clothes, so I can get back to my game. So quickly, they're all hopping out of the truck, putting all their trash in the dump. And I saw Langston putting the lid down. And I said, no! I said, Langston, did you eat all your food? No. I said, did you throw your food away? Yeah? Why did you throw the food away? Because I believe at that point, God wanted to demonstrate even to me that you can survive on your new normal. You don't have to break old patterns. You can continue to live out the normalcy because for even some of us, he's changing our taste buds. These last 21 days, God gave you a taste of your future. The question is, are you going to be content with a taste? Or are you going to resort back to eating, what is this? I'm giving you a taste of the promise. And this is only a fragment of what you're going to experience if you continue to love me, to live for me, and follow me. Or if it gets uncomfortable for you, go back to eating, what is this? And you know what? It made me think, I'm going to leave y'all alone. It made me think about when I was young, I didn't go to daycare like a lot of you bougie folks. My daycare was at my grandmother's house. Matter of fact, it was right across in Lincoln Homes, right over here. When we went over serving the community just a few weeks ago, I'm walking through. I said I was going to look for the house, and I got sidetracked, or I got busy, and next thing I know, I'm making a delivery, knocking on the door, and it was like it hit me. This is it. It was a moment. And so when I was not in school, I would go to my grandmother's house. My grandmother, every now and then she'd make cakes. My grandma, this is how she worked. She never worked a full-time job in her life. She worked for her children. So when my mom dropped me off, like my other aunties and uncles, you would bring your laundry. You would bring a frozen chicken. And by the time you came back to pick up your children, the laundry was clean, the clothes were folded. Somebody like, I need one of them in my life. Like, where they got them at? Farm Fresh? Where they do them at? Somebody, nah, they don't do those like that no more. Watch this. And so your clothes are clean, clothes are folded. Your chicken has been baked or fried, however you want it. She cut it up. How many of y'all still cut up chickens? Yeah, this a winged house right here. This is a straight drumette house in here. She cut up that chicken, saved that neck and that back. You ain't throwing away that neck and that back. Watch this. And Grandma, she make a cake. You know what? You new school folks, y'all don't make German chocolate like they used to. German chocolate used to keep us through the fire. We made it through some troubling seasons on German chocolate. And somebody like, PT, I'm going to do one today. No, you don't. No, you don't. You little Pillsbury dough. No, you don't. Don't do that. And so my grandma, she make a cake. I'm little, all right? I'm little, all right? She tell me, just go sit down. It's nap time for you. I'm like, Grandma, it's 9 in the morning. I just woke up. Nap time for you. She watching Sally Jesse Raphael, Bill Donahue, Phil Donahue, Young and the Restless came on like, was it 12:30, something along that line? Bold and the Beautiful. As the world turns, God and light, I had a flashback. You see that? It just all came right back to me. And she's like, you go up there and go to sleep. I'm like, Grandma, I've been out here for 4 hours. Hush, boy. All right? I smell the food coming from the kitchen, and I can smell something sweet baking in the oven. All right, Grandma, I need a piece of that cake. Grandma would say, the cake ain't ready, boy. I say, Grandma, that cake is mighty good. Grandma, can I get a piece of that cake? She said, the cake's in the oven. It's not ready. I worry her to death. Cake is in the oven. It's not ready. And I look back on the table. And on the table, she hadn't cleaned up yet. So she have her mixer and her bowl with the chrome beater still in the mixer. Y'all don't know about them chrome beaters. And I say, Grandma, I know you told me that the cake ain't ready. But until the cake is ready, is it possible that I can lick on one of your beaters and swing my finger through your bowl? Because although I may only get a taste, the reality is the same thing in the bowl is the same thing in the oven. And somebody is about to go into a season where God is about to let you lick on some beaters. You're going to get a taste until the oven is finished. God is getting ready to do it on your behalf. God is moving you from good to great. He's changing your appetite. The question is, do you want it? Do you want to be moved from obscurity to notoriety? Do you want it? Do you want to go into rooms where your name has already been mentioned before you ever walked in? Do you want it? In order for that to happen, you got to transition from good to great. And that doesn't come by way of a miracle. It comes through discipline, systematic behaviors. So my heart goes out to all of you who have ended your fast, because this fast should never end. My mind has been transformed. My appetite has been changed. I may go back to some things or treat myself in some seasons, but there's some things I ain't ever going back to. Never. I've experienced too much of the greatness he has for me to resort back to normalcy. In verses 8 and 9, for the book of the law shall not depart from your mouth, but you shall meditate on it day and night, so that you may be careful to do according to all that is written therein. For then you will make your way prosperous and you will have good success. Verse 9. But have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Don't be terrified. Don't be dismayed. For the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. This is what he tells them in Joshua chapter 1. Before they ever experienced the spying and having to be hid by Rahab. Why are you having to be hid? Because trouble's there. But in the midst of trouble, be strong and courageous. I'm with you. I'll use a whore if I got to. He then transitions them to chapter 3, where they're crossing over the Jordan. He's doing a familiar thing in a new way. But he says, be of good courage. Be strong. Don't be dismayed. I am with you. He tells them this before they ever cross the Jordan. Before they ever find Jericho walls, he tells them, be strong and of good courage. So why is this important for you today? Because I believe this message of strength and courage is preparing us for the promises that God is getting ready to take us into. And even when they look like they're not working for you, you got to believe that the promise is working for you. Be strong. Be of good courage. For the Lord your God is with you in every business deal. I got you. In every situation, I'm with you. In every obstacle, I'm here. I've already promised this for you. I've already prepared it for you. I just need you to have the courage to fight for it. I just want to know, do you want it enough to be willing to fight for it? That means you're going to have some sleepless nights. You're going to have some tear-filled nights. But will you wake up in the morning and go just as hard? Why? Because the promise is sure. Father, we thank you for your word, for your instructions that we have received, that we're in the season of going from good to great, from obscurity to notoriety, walking into rooms where our names have already been mentioned before we have entered therein. And we pray your blessing upon the people of God. Just like you did to the children of Israel, you are speaking over us. Be strong. I know Jericho's walls are coming, and when you face them, be strong. I know your Jordan is coming, and when you face it, be strong. People are going to try to kill you while you spy out your promise. But even when it happens, I need you to be strong because my promises for you are sure. Be strong and of good courage. Be not dismayed. For God is already and always, he will be with you. In Jesus' name. Cover us, Lord, from the crown of our head to the sole of our feet. Continue to be God in our lives. Open up doors of opportunity. Increase. Promotion. Creativity. From management to entrepreneurship. From handling thousands to overseeing accounts of millions. We thank you that we're entering into a season where we're no longer going to have to follow up off the back of old systems, but you're giving us the creativity to establish new systems. Systems that are in turn going to make us money. I believe it with every fiber of my being. Now that you have prepared us from the ground up, from the back to the front, internally to externally, now that we have increased the potential of our personal stewardship, I believe that you have found us even the more faithful. And with that faithfulness comes increase. I pray, Lord, that over the last 21 days, that there are those that you trusted with 2 talents and 2 gifts. And in 21 days, they managed to turn it into 4. I praise you, Lord, that you are multiplying them now. That those that you trusted with 5 and over 21 days, they were able to flip it into 10. I pray, Lord, that because of their faithfulness, you are increasing them even the more. And there may even be that one that you trusted with 1. And all they did was to bring you back 1. The reality is there was and is potential for better. But if we be absolutely honest, where I came from, if you give me 1, I probably wouldn't have given you anything back. So for some, there needs to be credit that at least I didn't spend everything you gave me. I'm asking, Lord, that you'll do it now in every area of our lives, financially, emotionally, socially, relationally, physically, mentally, psychologically. Do it in every area of our lives. And we decree and declare, in Jesus' name we pray. I believe with every fiber of my being that this is our season to go from good to great. How many of you receive this?